since the year 2008 when I met Mr. Banerjee, and through that perspective, the objective was to get the inputs from the industry experts on designing our curriculum. We offer in our university 3 MBA programs. One is the general MBA. The other is a specialized program on HR, which we call as MBA HR. We also have a program in MBA tourism. And along with that, we have a distance MBA program. So in fact, there are 4 programs. And for the MBA HR program, we were talking about designing a curriculum which would be best suited for the industry. And therefore, we decided that we organize a workshop, and people would be giving their inputs in the workshop. And based on that, the syllabus would be designed. And the way we did it, with very vital inputs from Mr. Banerjee, that was probably for the first time a traditional university department has designed a curriculum and has revised it based on the industry's input. In fact, we had done it in a 2-stage manner. First stage where we invited inputs from as many experts as possible. Second stage, we had a brainstorming session where industry executives as well as academicians, they sat together and identified the topics which would be required for designing an effective curriculum. So that is what engagement, that is to me what academic engagement for industry professionals would be like. So here comes a time when we have to do away with abstract talks. When I was talking to one of my PhD students, who is also an industry guy, very colleague of Mr. Banerjee, as well as my own student. There was another student also from the industry. Both are from public sector organizations in senior HR positions. Now, they are all into research work, PhD work, but are senior HR managers. And we try to encourage participants from the industry to take interest in research. Now, research may not always be in the form of a PhD work. I have many of my friends in the industry, including my students, friends, maybe students, my batchmates who are now in the industry, with whom I attend seminars in India as well as abroad. I have published papers with many of the industry guys. And along with that, I also have students who are senior HR professionals doing PhD under either my guidance or in someone else's guidance. Indrolin Banerjee Sahib is also one of them. But we think, and I have always been a proponent of having industry inclusive academic institutions. Though we belong to a typical public sector or public funded university, but given the authority, or what should I say, the empowerment that has been given to us by our university authority, we get the chance to engage with the industry wherever possible. Now, that is the need of the hour, actually. The need of the hour is to move out of abstract talks to strategic actions. So this seminar, when I was talking to my student, which I was referring to just a couple of minutes back, I said that I have decided to talk actions rather than philosophy. We have had enough of discussion on why industry academia engagement is necessary. Now it is time to take things seriously and think in terms of actionable targets. And enough of the discussion, enough of seminar, enough of people from the industry highlighting what and why is it important to have good industry institute collaboration. So now there has to be a second shift, a shift from that, wherein academic institutions prove that they are really engaged with the industry and they exhibit through documents, through evidences, where industry orientation in the academic scenario, wherever possible, has been exhibited through metrics and measurement. That is something which the accreditation bodies, which accredit us, like National Assessment and Accreditation Council, National Institutional Ranking Framework, NIRF, and many others are there. So these are bodies which have been prescribing institutions, directing institutions to go for a direct engagement with the industry. So there is a two-way linkage between the industry and the academia. So far, I have talked about the academia getting integrated with the industry wherever possible. But there is always a backward kind of an integration where the industry executives should try to integrate their activities with the academic institutions, which may not be that much relevant, or maybe may not be relevant for all organizations. Possibly there are institutions which are having more in this context. But in general, we are not able to find this kind of a generalistic or a generic kind of an integration in the backward direction from the industry to the academic. So therefore, what I would like to highlight is that it is an imperative rather than an option for industry as well as the academia to engage among themselves. It's an imperative which has to be taken into account. Universities, colleges, institutions, or in brief, we call them as HEIs, as an imperative option, they have to integrate with the industry, and industry can also integrate with the academic institutions. And based on my own experiences, based on my own perspective, and based on the way I have seen many of the academic-minded industry professionals, I think industry professionals can gain if they have a continuous engagement with the academic institutions, not just giving a lecture, but having a continuous or a sustainable kind of a linkage. That is the basic proposition with which I wanted to start my presentation. So, as I said, the changing narrative is all about not just having a seminar. It is a strategic necessity for institutions as well as for the industry. Like we have discussed this as it is necessary, even ministers talking about that, industry houses talking about that. And where are the tangible outcomes? Where is the bottom line? So now it's time to think of the bottom line as to what we have done and what are the evidences, what are the matrices. So HEIs have to shift from theory to metrics and measurable outcomes, exhibiting that they are strongly engaged with the industry, exhibiting their seriousness about engagement with the industry. Now, that has to be taken as a perspective. If an institution is not able to do well, it will not able to sustain in the future, because that is the way, since we are associated with the academic administration also, we look after the requirements of the different agencies. We are associated with different kinds of regulatory bodies in terms of experts in their field. Now, based on our engagement in the host institution as well as the regulatory bodies, we believe that now it's time to talk in terms of what we have done, not why it is important. It's already over. That's the history, that it's important that we should have a strong linkage. Now we should discuss what have we done. So that paradigm shift has to be taken into account by academic institutions, and it is where industry professionals need to contribute positively as to how the linkage can be developed. For example, in my course where I teach, we have got, as our esteemed audience would be aware, and they must be aware, that as part of the MBA course, a very important aspect is summer internship project. For my course, 95% of the projects come from the support that we get from our PhD students, our ex-students, and people with whom we have been engaged with research. So that is one way through which the industry has been collaborating with us. Rather, they are our ex-students, so majority are our ex-students, and they know that when summer project is going to come, and they contact us, sir, this time how many students you are going to send. It's not that our placement officer contacts, it's the industry guy who is an HR manager. He himself, remembering that May, June is the time where our students take up the project. Majority of them, they come in touch with us, they ask us, when will your project start? This time we are going to accommodate 5 or 6 students from our department, since they belong to our department. So that is the way it's a kind of a proactive step taken by the industry, not that an institution sends a letter requesting the industry to please take our students. It's the other way around, where the industry tells us that tell me how many students you are going to give us this time. That is a kind of positive vibe which is expected from the industry, and for that we need to have that kind of a collaborative mindset. If that mindset or the message is not there, then it will not work. So that kind of mindset has to be there from the industry as well as the academic institutions. And as I said, that this engagement is critical. And as I said, it's not that institutions are going to benefit out of it. No. Rather, organizations are going to benefit out of it. No. It's also the other way around. So taking part in students' activities in some organizations, as I have been told by many of my friends in the HR fraternity, that this is sometimes a part of the CSR or personal social responsibility which people are required to take up at least some kind of social responsibility activities or socially responsible activities are taken up by an institution or by a manager, which they can exhibit for their annual performance improvement or other metrics which are used. So therefore, there is mutual enrichment through collaboration. And collaboration can be in different forms. Let us see how much time we get to have a discussion on that. And there will be definitely accelerated innovation and research output, because when industry and institute, they collaborate, I have seen from my own experiences, the output is always better. When we publish a research paper with a fully academic oriented mindset, and when I have personally published or presented a paper in a seminar, in international seminars, of course, because normally I don't attend a seminar which, rather I don't present a paper in a seminar where there is no kind of value addition of any form. So I have seen that when a research paper is undertaken by me and my colleague in the industry, the research outcome is totally different. So research outcome is totally different based on the collaboration between an industry guy and an academic institution. And let me tell you frankly, this is going to be totally different if it is written by an academician and or fully written by an industry expert, because they might be having a very strong domain knowledge, but as far as preparing a research paper is concerned, they may not be aware of the requirements. So this is where collaboration can be taken care of. Collaboration or mutual collaboration between these two parties can lead to tangible positive outcomes. It will also lead to creation of future ready professionals. Like if institutions can help us by telling what are the topics we should cover, then it becomes some kind of helping our students to see that they are able to equip themselves with the requirements of the industry. And it is also giving solutions to real world problems. In my engagement with the academic institutions for more than 20 years, I have, apart from publishing, which is a basic requirement for university teachers, I have personally undertaken 5 consultancy projects. And I could see that in my engagement with industry in terms of consultancy projects, industry was in search of a problem which would be different from the way they have handled it. They were in search of some kind of an analytics, some kind of an analysis or matrix of certain aspects of or a particular problem, which has to be analyzed in a systematic manner. And I could understand that my research orientation has enabled me, or rather it has helped the industry to get what it was expecting from an educational institution. So we can contribute positively if we can understand what are the areas where we can mutually collaborate. So I can provide some inputs on areas which would be useful for the industry. And that becomes part of my consultancy work. And I have been very satisfied with some of the consultancy works which I have been undertaking very recently. I will not take the name because it was a confidential project. I was very satisfied when I could convince the authority of an organization why should they go for contractual employment. They were insisting less on the contractual part, but then I tried to convince them with metrics, with calculations, with statistics, with quantitative analysis as to why it's going to be better if the company has a mix of contractual and permanent employees. So that was an academic kind of a research or an academic exercise which I have undertaken based on the problem of an industry. The industry was not able to find out the exact form of employment mode. So I could identify a form of employment mode based on the data, based on the study that I had undertaken. It was a 2-year-long study. We were supposed to complete it within 6 months. Then as I submitted the first report, there was expectation requirement of certain other areas. And eventually we came up with a certain solution, which has given a new face to the company. So it was actually a collaboration because there were certain aspects which I wanted to learn from the industry. And there were certain aspects which the industry looked forward from me in terms of the statistical parameters and also looking at from a holistic perspective, from an academic perspective. So that is where I think academic institutions and mainly the academicians who are oriented with research, industry-oriented research, they are able to contribute, that they shall be able to contribute. We once again go back to the imperatives which I was discussing. I said that the parameters which our accreditation bodies like National Assessment and Accreditation Council, NIRF, they always emphasize, rather they measure the performance of universities and colleges in terms of their partnership with private organizations. To give you an example of this would be the 3 under NAC parameters. NAC generally assess institutions based on the self-study report, which some of you might be aware, or maybe all of you are aware. Institutions have to go for annual quality assurance report, AQAR, which is kind of an annual report which has to be submitted on quality. And eventually, after every 4 years, when institutions go for accreditation, we have to submit a self-study report to National Assessment and Accreditation Council. And for today's discussion, when I was planning, I could identify that there are different criteria on where industry collaboration is important for institutions. Criterion 3, for example, research, innovation, extension. There are metrics associated with industry-sponsored research projects, internship, consultancy work, specific points against each of these, which educational institutions cannot fulfill if there is a sustainable collaboration, if there is no sustainable collaboration with the industry. So industry should be able, institutions should be able to highlight the areas where they can establish this kind of a linkage. Criterion 5, it's about student support and progression, where placement and career opportunities via industry linkages have to be provided in terms of tangible measures. There are other aspects like institutional values and best practices, where collaboration with different organizations would be part of these best practices. So in NIRF as well as National Assessment and Accreditation Council, in the universities or colleges have to show tangible outcomes based on the initiatives taken for industry-oriented collaborations. As I said, next comes the NIRF parameters, where research and professional practices, which carries a very important point. And you know that many of the engineering colleges, the IIMs, they are categorized, IITs are categorized into another category, which is either under management category or technology category or engineering category. Universities in general come under the general category, but whatever might be the case, there are issues like joint publication, patents with the industry. There are GO like placement percentages. There are outreach and inclusivity, which talks about industry engagement in community outreach and the educational institutions' role here. And let me tell you, when NIRF, they take perception ranking from different stakeholders, one of the important stakeholders from whom the NIRF body, they take perception ranking is from the employers, which is the industry. So generally for perception, they send, I think some of you might be aware of the way in which perception scores are calculated for NIRF ranking of different institutions. And there, institutions are required to send a list of their employers of their students. And employers will have to rank or give their perception regarding the institution through which the perception score is calculated. So therefore, based on this, we can very well see that industry collaboration is not just a topic of discussion which an institution does, invite some director or senior management from the institutions and he gives a lecture of 1 hour telling why is it important. Now it is time to talk in terms of the metrics, to talk in terms of the measurements and performance drivers, which would actually enable these institutions to go for better NAC ranking and NIRF ranking. So it's an imperative, as I said, from the point of view of the industry institute collaboration. Now, as I said, institutions can also engage with the industry bodies, like we have an industry aligned and updated curriculum. We can invite industry executives into the body. We have got board of studies. We have got academic councils. Even we have got executive councils in some universities. They are called senate and syndicate. And even in our university, once upon a time, we had an industry expert who was a member of our court. In a very renowned university in our West Bengal, a very renowned industry expert from South India is in the senate of that university. So it could be on policy making, it could be on, as you are aware, that Executive Council is the highest decision-making body of a university. We have to keep industry executives. Then again, we have got the National Assessment and Accreditation Council, NAC Advisory Committee. As per NAC Advisory Committee, we have to put in an executive from the industry into this body. And they have to give suggestions as to how industry orientation in the university, in the institutions can be improved. So it's not just you have to keep, it is an imperative because the list has to be displayed on the website. So in the NAC advisory body, whether we have got an industry representative, whether he's there, it's already there. So why I'm talking this is IIT, IIM, it's there. In the board of governors, in many of the institutions, IIT, IIM, XLRI, we find that the board of governors, chairman of the board of governors is normally a very strong industry guy. But what about average institutions like ours? Even for us also, there is a prescription that industry representatives should be there in our highest quality body, which is the NAC Advisory Committee. So we can have different kinds of bodies where industry executives can be put in. It's not just an industry guy comes and gives a lecture. No, he becomes a permanent member of the body which frames the syllabus and gives his input on this. And then, as I said, in terms of internships and projects, we can take up certain work. In fact, once upon a time, the DST, as well as ICSSR, they invited projects from the academic institutions and they wanted specific examples of industry linkages with respect to that project. And we have to give examples of that. During COVID-19 period, UGC came forward with some kind of a proposal from educational institutions wherein we could offer some diploma courses. And one of the basic requirements was to have MOUs, 5 MOUs with the industry for executing the courses. In fact, many of you might be aware of AICTE requirements for engineering and management education. As part of mandatory requirement for AICTE, there has to be 5 live MOUs with the industry, and we have to give evidence of that. And per course, not per institution, per course, there has to be 5 live institutional MOU with industries which are directly aimed at executing internship projects and training of students. That is the ICT directive, which is a mandatory requirement. For placements, these are all generic kind of, and it has flown over the years. Direct recruitment pipeline is established. And institutions nowadays are facing fund crunch. We don't have funding the way funding was available maybe 5-10 years back, because research funding opportunities are getting reduced and reduced, and hence we have to look forward to industries in getting research funded. So sponsored research opportunities could be explored by academic institutions from the industry bodies. There could also be faculty development programs from the industry wherein they get hands-on exposure for teachers. And as I said, industry engagement increases the accreditation score. So these are the benefits which academic institutions can accrue out of this engagement. And I hope I could make, I think majority of the audience is from the industry, but I hope I could make you understand that it's not just something which academic institutions need to develop as part of a discretion. It's a compulsion for all of us. If you want to do well, if you want to kind of offer a course which is at par with the requirements of the society, we need to have a proper and a strong linkage with the industry. So that is an imperative for the academic institutions. Now, what about the industry? Because as I said, it has to be a two-way process. It's not just a one-way process. Only academic institutions look forward from the help from the industry. Based on my own experiences and experiences from the audience present here, access to trained and job-ready candidates can be obtained easily when we have this kind of a linkage. Let me give you a simple example of a very simple kind of a linkage which we had in our university, which is in a tier 2 city, not having access to the industry as such. About 16 to 18 years back, we had an MOU with an BPO. At that time, it was BPO company. They later on shifted to KPO as the tradition was. And the point is that we had an MOU wherein MCOM students of our university will be selected by the industry, 15 per year. They would set up a training facility, and they had set up that. Training facility was there. We had a syllabus where majority of we had the syllabus divided into two parts. Majority of the portions for part 1 was covered by the teachers of the university, and a part was covered by the concerned company. And in phase 2, once phase 1 was done, examination was taken, and the examination based on certain parameters, out of 15, I think 10 to 12 students were selected to go for the second phase in the company, where hands-on training was given, and almost 100% out of this 10 to 12 were absorbed by the company through this arrangement, and this continued for nearly 6-7 years. And eventually, when the contact was lost with whom we started, and when there was a change in the top management of the company, this MOU was winded off. But before that, it was a very good kind of an engagement, where an example of having access to trained and job-ready candidates was done by the company by setting up an establishment at Burdwan. So that is an example which could be emulated in other institutions. Then there could actually also be problem solving, where we have research-based solutions for industry challenges. Maybe a chemical industry or maybe an electronic industry needs a solution which needs research, where facilities may not be available in the organization. Even a typical problem like in our HR case, a problem associated with compliance. We can develop metrics for organizations we are interested to see or measure compliance in a very objective manner. That could also be as simple as designing a form for market survey. The basic problem, like for example, IIMs are there, but there would be many companies, small and medium scale organizations, which may not afford to pay what IIMs would demand. So they can come forward to small organizations, small colleges which is having some kind of a knowledge base which can provide solutions to these problems. Doing a kind of a survey, designing a form, making analysis, even payroll analysis can be undertaken in my department, in my university, in a college. There could also be a R&D support in terms of the utilizing the laboratories which are very rich. For example, in my university, even in NIT Durgapur, we have got very rich laboratories, which laboratory-oriented companies, R&D-oriented companies can leverage. They can get a part of their works executed in those labs. There could also be executive education wherein some kind of issues, upskilling of workforce can be undertaken through an academic program. Now, as I said, the trend of the day is only to have training from IIMs. I'm not telling that IIMs are not effective. They are very effective. But how many a times I have seen that companies may not afford to pay. So for them, we are here. So therefore, what about a majority of the industries which may not afford to pay the charges which premier institutions would demand? So we can take up certain upskilling of workforces in a very organized or structured program. For example, typically designing a training calendar, or maybe even designing a payroll in terms of the requirement of the organizations. Or maybe when this labor codes are coming up, how to make the compliance format ready. Then comes the question of partnering in startup and innovation hubs, which something is becoming interesting nowadays, and many companies are investing in different startups. So the boundary has to expand. It's not that these are all not happening, but it has to happen in every institution, and it has to happen in every organization. So that is the spirit with which I wanted to kind of make an appeal to the industry professionals, that let us come up and see that our model which I am trying to explain here is implemented in majority of the industries and majority of the institutions. We can assure you that the organizations, if the proper kind of training can be given to many of the faculty members, they can help you solve different kinds of problems. For example, some of you might be associated in undertaking impact assessment of CSR, which some of you might be aware that for certain kinds of projects with 1 crore or more amount of project cost, a mandatory impact assessment has to be undertaken by a third party. Who can best do it? We are confident enough to see or tell that we are most equipped to take up this assignment of carrying out an impact assessment, which is a mandated activity which industry has to undertake. Now, I ask many of my students, many of my ex-students, many of my colleagues, as to who is there to help you out in your impact assessment. Many a time they say we have got tie-up with NGOs. But can NGOs do that if they don't have the right kind of human resource or the intellectual ability? Because it needs understanding of law, it needs understanding of analytics. For example, in impact assessment, there is an important term which is called social return on investment. And that needs high-end calculation. I have done it for one very renowned public sector organization. That's why I'm telling that many of you and majority of you would be aware of this social return on investment. Is it so easy that an NGO will be able to do it? Social return on investment? No. It involves high-end calculations where not only people from us, from management stream, we would need people from economics, we would need people from accounting and statistics who should sit together and come up with a formula which can give up the highest and best way through which we can calculate social return on investment, which is part of impact assessment. Now, is the industry ready, mentally ready to give this assignment to the academic institutions? That is going to help the industry in solving its problem, and also for this compliance part. And something with which I started, where industry can benefit. Many of the industry can enable their institutions, their executives to do some kind of a research. For example, I came across the R&D head of a very renowned organization. I should not take his name because I have not taken his permission, but I asked him that you are the R&D head of a renowned company. So, and he has two post-doctoral degrees from foreign universities. I said that, what kind of help have you got from your company? He said that both my postdoctoral studies have been supported by my company. So many a times I hear two things. One is their boss is not ready to give permission to a young executives in doing his PhD. And there is, on the other end, we have got industries which are encouraging people to do their PhD because that is going to help the executives in upskilling, in understanding problems in a better way with an analytical kind of mindset. So professionals can take up PhD work. In fact, whenever I select PhD students in my own university, out of the vacancies that I have, I deliberately, if they perform well in terms of the prescribed parameters of UGC, I would definitely prefer a student of mine who is in the industry in a senior position interested to do his PhD. Because we want industry guys to be engaged in research. That gives a different kind of a perspective to the research outcome eventually. It's not that only faculty members should do the research. Industry people should also be doing the research from a present day perspective as well as futuristic perspective. I'll take up that word afterwards, but this is something which is an imperative for industry people. Now, as I said, there is a scheme which all of you might be aware of, the industry professionals perspective, professor of practice, which is an UGC scheme where UGC is encouraging this professor of practice initiative, which has to be implemented in higher education, wherein the industry experts, they bring real world expertise into higher education. They infuse industry practices. They are supposed to bring in experiences into academic curricula that would bridge the gap between industry and the academia. So let me give you my personal example. My father, my late father, he was a second batch student of XLRI. Now, when I was studying my MBA, he used to ask me, what did you study today? What was covered this week? Now, in this exercise, I came to know that he said that, you know, what happened when we were students of XLRI. Supposing in the morning session, we had a discussion on performance appraisal by our teacher, by our faculty member. In the evening or in the afternoon, an executive from Tata Steel would come and would discuss in what way performance appraisal is practiced within Tata Steel. So in the morning, you have a theoretical discussion on performance appraisal. In the evening, we will have a presentation by an executive from Tata Steel, and that too in the year 1968, 1969. So that was typical example which I've heard from my own family member as to how industry academia collaboration can be undertaken, and that would enable the academic institutions to get the benefit. So this professor of practice is actually an exercise of imbibing some kind of industry-oriented thoughts into the academic arena. It's not that from the first day we ask the industry professionals to teach theories, no. Because theories have to be understood through research and through different kinds of readings. So professor of practice, you are all aware, professor of practice. So therefore, you have to bring in the practice perspective within the academic domain. And that is an opportunity for many of the professionals to share their practices, as has been highlighted by University Grants Commission. Once again, if you talk in terms of benefits, it's going to be like a recognition from an academic institution fulfilling their esteemed needs, like someone being associated with the advisory body, with the board of studies, with the academic council of an institution. That would give them a recognition. It would also strengthen practical knowledge with theoretical foundation, because many a times I say that theoretical foundations can be best given by academic institutions. By professors from academic institutions. And practical perspective can be brought in by the industry guy. It's not that the other way around, that we ask the industry guy to give the theoretical foundation. No, that is not the correct way to do it. So we get like if some industry people are interested to know what is the theoretical underpinning to a certain aspect, academic institution is a place where they can learn. Like we offer an MBA distance program, and we invite young professionals who may be a BTech or a BE and he has started working in an institutions. We ask them, we invite them to take admission in our MBA distance program. In fact, we are also in search of offering different kinds of value-added courses, which would be of some use to industry professionals. And industry professionals can gain out of all this, because many of you might be aware that in the evening, in our state capital, Kolkata, we have got different renowned institutions which offer evening courses, and where a lot number of industry people, they participate. They also get a chance to shape future talents, which is a kind of a responsibility. And they also enable institutions to develop the curriculum. And as I said, many industry professionals might be interested to venture into the academic arena after maybe 20 years in their late 50s. So remaining attached with the industry with the academic institutions would give them the right kind of orientation towards what would be required in teaching. Because I have come across many industry guys who have suddenly come into teaching and they are very frustrated. People are not able to understand. And when I ask some of the students, they say that they only give examples of what is happening only in their company. They're not able to have that holistic perspective, holistic understanding. So if an industry guy is able to orient himself towards the academic requirements over a long period of time, over a continuous engagement in different board of studies, taking classes occasionally, taking part in different kinds of activities like summer project assessment, even taking the final interview, they will be oriented as to how academic institutions function, and eventually this will provide them a path where they can shift to the academic institutions easily after a certain period of time. So that is an enhancement which is good for the society, which is good for the individual, but that would need a kind of a structured approach, not a sudden movement from one arena to the other. So they can gain fresh perspectives, intellectual stimulation by interacting in different kinds of conferences. So I would request, I tell my students who are in the industry, try to present papers in different academic conferences and prepare papers based on research orientation. Because sometimes I see people giving a lecture, it's typical lecture, but where is the research in it? So while this is true for executives, we expect executives to give lecture on certain aspects, but also important for executives to have an academic oriented mindset, prepare a paper and submit it for a conference and present the findings. So therefore engage with research. That would enable executives to sharpen the critical thinking, broaden their intellectual horizon, collaborate on papers, preparing a paper. Why don't you, I would request, I would invite the senior executives that apart from publishing in the journals and magazines in your domain, why don't you take up the activity of publishing in an academic journal, which is research oriented? That would benefit the society, as well as you can say that I have published in a journal. So you can collaborate on papers, guide projects, even pursue PhD work while working. And you shape minds, share industry lessons, and influence the next generations. These are some of the benefits which I have seen my circle accruing. Maybe many of the participants are already aware of this. This is just a sharing of experiences as far as this part is concerned. And then you become a subject matter expert. You build a career in academia, as I said. You expand your professional network. You are part of the think tank. You get multi-stakeholder knowledge communities. So this becomes a two-way engagement which empowers professionals and also help them implement industry policies in a more pragmatic and realistic manner. So how do we implement? we have to have an industry advisory body in universities. We need to develop joint research projects and laboratories. As has been mandated by NEP, you are all aware that universities and colleges are in a transitionary phase of implementing internship or national educational policy, NEP, wherein institutionalization of internship in all subjects is mandatory. It's not just for management or engineering. So that would give an opportunity for industries to engage with the academic institutions. We could launch co-branded certificate programs, which is nowadays a very important aspect for industries in terms of a win-win situation. We could encourage industry sabbaticals for faculty. We could create shared innovation labs. These are imperatives which industry and academic can do together. And finally, in terms of metrics, educational institutions, as I said, have to exhibit the engagement in terms of metrics, which may not be important for industries, although as part of CSR reporting, as part of different kinds of other reportings, engagements have to be reported by industry. But for academic institutions, as I said, it's an imperative where number of MOU signed by industries become an important indicator. Placement improvement, joint publication, that is, joint publication can take different forms. One of the forms is where an industry guy participates with an academic guy or a professor, and this publication is given more weightage. This is what we call as joint publication in the present day perspective. So collaboration between the industry and the academia, that is going to give more points to our university. Industry funded projects, curriculum revised based on industry inputs, and number of PhD scholars from the industry. Let me tell you, these are tangible measures which we universities have to express, have to tell different regulatory bodies, different accreditation bodies. So these are, as I said, imperatives which have to be taken into account. And we can take certain examples, but I should stop because I think time is almost over. We can have some kind of a discussion. It's not a QA session, it would be a kind of a discussion. And from silos to synergy, we must break the institutional silos and build productive and sustainable bridges. Time is now not to collaborate, but to co-create. So with this note, I end my deliberation. Once again, I thank the organizers, Mr. Ramesha and Mr. Indranil Banerjee, for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts. And if there is any suggestion from the esteemed participants, I would be happy to take this forward to my university authority or maybe percolate within my community. So thanks once again for the opportunity.
Many thanks, Professor Sarkar. Dr. Sarkar, I have just small one observations that yes, the whole program has been recorded and it will be available in the YouTube. We'll be providing that link to all the groups as well as the speaker and for their circulations. I think okay, that will be help many of us to just correct, because sometimes time become challenge for the people to join. So that is one thing. And I have a small questions. So is it mandatory to become a professor on practice when a person is on roll, or even that can continue afterwards?
No, actually, this has not been formalized in a proper way. Like, okay. Institutions are doing it, but we, as we have also discussed, you and I, we have discussed that we are looking forward to a specific guideline on this from the regulatory bodies, UGC as well as the government of West Bengal. And there has to be a proper framework in designing this, but this is the first step. And we think within a couple of years, when NEP is in full-fledged form, this professor of practice has to be implemented in a structured guideline. And I think what you asked could be clarified based on the guideline. Either institutions should develop it, and as a regulatory body, we have the authority to develop the guideline, but we also look forward to state government's guideline what other institutions are doing. So with that, we can effectively implement that.
I understand. In any case, there are many high points in the whole entire sessions. So I think the viewers as well as the future viewers will be benefited out of that. And Ramesha ji, I request Ramesha ji to take the question and answer forward.
Yeah.
Thank you from my personal level, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Indranilji. And I request Professor B.T. Lavani, if sir, to have any words regarding this session or any questions.
There is a question. Afterwards, I can take it up.
Okay, you can take up the question, sir. Then,
yeah, I see one question where can we write articles published in reputed, recognized journals and also an ISBN number 2 for our own growth? Yeah, very important question. I was expecting. That was my appeal actually. So therefore, first thing is if you're interested in publishing a paper in a journal, it becomes an ISSN thing, but it's ISSN is a very basic thing. It's not that ISSN is going to suffice. We have to see the standard of the journal. So I would suggest at least target a standard journal which has a rigorous review process where the article would be reviewed by experts and eventually your paper is going to be accepted. And if it has got an impact factor, it's going to give you the right kind of recognition. Don't publish in a journal which is an average, just having an ISSN. An ISBN is for books. So book chapters, if you're interested in a book chapter, if it is published from a high quality publisher, that adds value to your CV. Because when you are going to write it that this article has been published in this kind of a publisher, then the person who is taking your interview, he might be aware of this publisher. He might say that yes, this is going to be a good one. So you have done a very good academic exercise. So what I'm telling is try to have a benchmark in your publication exercise also. Don't publish in an average journal which may not be that much value adding. Have some kind of a collaboration with academic institutions and try to develop a paper which is going to be accepted in a standard journal. That is my humble submission.
Thank you, Sarkar. Any questions from the participants? We can take another 1 or 2 questions. See, someone is asking for Kannada class. Definitely in future we'll organize this Kannada classes in the. Any more questions?
So this is Kevin here. My question is, now you just spoke about recognized journals or
Sir, please introduce yourself first, okay, sir?
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Kevin.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yes.
please.
So this is my name is Kevin. I'm actually working out of Bangalore with a good 16 years of experience in the industry. I work in the capacity of a human resource business partner. To ask my question per se. Now, there are many people, who say, okay, you can write an article in ET HR World or, HR World, or they are very, because it's a forum of a HR where, there's continuous learning or there is, but the laws may be very age old. One of the things which we covered in one of the classes, but there are new trends which has been set up. So to have synergy between old and new, where can we publish to make ourselves known or aware, so that it can make a difference as the industry is also growing, we are also evolving, we can see the gap which is actually coming together. But it's also important we can we should encourage the next generation or the students. So where exactly is a forum which you think? Because in Bangalore there are maybe 3 or 4 colleges. I can name like Christ College, Joseph's, which has a good reputation, or Jain. They are legacy institutes. Probably in your state, it may be some, some institutes may be there. But overall, to make an impact, at least to a certain extent, what is your advice and where can we actually use our knowledge to make an impact? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. There are different aspects which you have highlighted. One is the writing habit and getting it published. That is your first issue. So what I would suggest is the objective of yours should be first identified. If you are planning to move into the academics after maybe 10, 15 years, take the preparation from now onwards. Try to publish at least, apart from publishing in the business-oriented magazines, I should say, you should at least target 1 or 2 journals, academic in the true sense. and there your academic acumen, your research orientation gets noticed, and that adds to your career in two ways. One is you are research minded, which many industries would look forward. Two is your visibility would be high outside your community. And thirdly, it will make you prepared for the academic institutions who are interested to join. But then again, I would say that you continue with your existing exercise of publishing in your own field, in your own journals where your group or your peers are associated with, or your peers come across. So I should not say move out of that. So maybe you publish there and you try to have some kind of publication initiative in academic journals. That is one. Secondly, it's not just giving a lecture. I was talking in terms of a continuous exercise of getting engaged with institutions on a long-term perspective. And institutions have to come forward, only then we are going to get a value-added outcome. So those kind of engagements need to be identified by institutions. There are different activities which institutions have to undertake, and every activity will have some kind of an engagement from the industry institutions, and we have to invite you. It's not that you come forward. We have to take the initiative of inviting you to get your expertise as per the requirement of our regulatory bodies. So as I said, academic institutions should come forward and see how best we can utilize it. We can utilize your engagement. So that has to come from the side of the institution. And then the other things, as I said, research habit, making a presentation in academic conferences, not in conferences where you participate, or rather these are gatherings which are important from a professional point of view. But I would request that please share your experiences, share your research in academic conferences. Maybe every year IIM Bangalore organizes 1 or 2 conferences on management, core management. They also organize on others. Why don't you participate in that? Other institutions are also there. You can participate there, and then we have other institutions also. So that would be my submission.
Professor, I would like to add a couple of points. I think for Mr. Kevin, you have given full answers. I would like to supplement one thing. If you want to remain in line with the current trend, you can definitely join HR at 8 p.m. so that you can understand the current trend. You can connect Mr. Ramesa. He will guide you. Number one. And if you are, keen to write and get your publications in magazine, Business Manager HR magazine is there. So you can send your article. Not only you, other participants who are interested. You can send your article through Ramesa ji, and our editorial board will check it. And if it is fair enough, definitely your article will be published. That much I can guarantee. And these two platforms actually join hand to just encourage the young generations to get interested in this particular field. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, for asking a good question. I think time is up. Thank you. I think we don't have any other questions. Thank you, one and all. On behalf of all the participants and the organizers, I thank Dr. Partha Sarkar for giving a wonderful lecture. And also, we learned many things on CSR and management aspects and labor law and all. So thank you, one and all. We can close this session, and again, we'll connect after 15 days. We'll have one more session. Thank you, one and all. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Sarkar.
Good night, and thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah.
We are glad to have you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, there was another question. I think we can take it up later.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Biti Lavani.